seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. You are speaking truth to power. You are laying down our swords, replanting every vineyard till a brand new wine is poured. Your peace will make us one. I've seen you in our home fires, burning with a quiet light. You are mothering and feeding in the wee hours of the night. Your gentle love is patient. You will never fade or tire. Your peace will make us one. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Your peace will make us one. In the beauty of the lilies, you were born across the sea. With glory in your bosom that is still transfiguring, dismantling our empires till each one of us is free. Your peace will make us one. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Your peace will make us one. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Your peace will make us one.
All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday morning, June the 21st, 2023. So I guess today is the official start of summer. So happy summer, everybody. It's been summer here for a little bit, and it's usually summer here, right? Anyway, good morning. Let me say good morning to everybody. Hello to Jeannie, and drive safely, and good morning to Eileen, and to Ron and Amy, and to Sonia and Margarita. Good morning to Jerry and Janet, and to Dayspring and Rachel and Barbara Callahan and Richard and Ellen and Elizabeth and Jesse. Good morning to the Eddies, to Lauren and Mike and David and Levi and Valor and Haven and Everett. And good morning, Kathleen and Pastor and Sister Martinez. And good morning to Joshua. And good afternoon to my sister Maria. I love you, sis, and I hope you're doing well today. And good morning to Hattie and to Joyce and Joe, and to Sonia Tkach. Good morning. Well, today we are Did I say hello to Pastor and Sister Martinez? Oh, hey there, Barbara, you're live today. Normally, lately, Barbara's been having to work in the mornings and catching us later in the day. So we are in a really, really powerful passage today. I mean, I think we, most people, the familiarity with this passage is simply with some of the imagery that we hear in that song, which was a revised version of the song, the battle, hymn of the Republic. Your peace will make us one there by Audrey Assad. It's such a beautiful rendition, which really points to the heart of God. But this is a really incredible passage that I don't know that a lot of people are super familiar with. The title of it is Who Are You? And What Happened to Your Clothes? And so as we're reading this passage, there are going to be some background passages that we're all pretty familiar with. There are passages that we're going to recognize language and themes that we have seen. And of course, as we come to the end of Isaiah, right, as everything is sort of wrapping up, there is, there's repetition. There are strings that get tied together. One of the things that is interesting with sometimes with prophecy is, and in particular, we do see this in the book of Isaiah at the end here, is so a lot of times the way people read the book of Revelation in its entirety is sort of, we read it in a linear way. Of course, our minds are linear, and we read in sort of chronological. It happens in this way. And yet what you can see as you go through the book is that something will be expressed from this perspective, and it's sort of like something's been unpeeled, a circle that's been unpeeled, and so we're seeing it, but what we end up seeing sometimes is the same event from different points of view, from different angles, from different perspectives. And so we see certain themes reiterated here that, again, are another way of looking at that which has happened and that which will happen. Anyway, so you're going to notice these background passages as we go through. But let's read them in advance. Isaiah 59, 1 and 2. Behold, Adonai's hand is not too short to save, nor his ear too dull to hear. Rather, your iniquities have made a separation between you and your God. Your sins have hidden his face from you so that he does not hear. We go to verse 15. It says, so now truth is missing. It talks about how there's no righteousness, that the world is a complete mess. Whoever shuns evil becomes prey. When Adonai saw it, it was displeasing in his eyes. It was wicked in his eyes, it says, that there was no justice. He saw that there was no one. He was astonished or horrified that no one was interceding, no one was intervening, no one was coming. That language for interceding has to do with to come upon an assailing. No one's stepping in to deal with this. Therefore, his own arm brought salvation for him, and his righteousness upheld him. He put on righteousness as a breastplate and a helmet of salvation on his head. He clothed himself in robes of vengeance and wrapped himself in zeal as a cloak. And so we're going to see this one coming. What are you wearing? But the clothes look different. And so we'll see. And so according to their deeds, so he will repay wrath to his adversaries, retribution to his enemies. To the islands he will repay as due. And that word as due has to do with the word shalom. It's going to bring a completion, a wholeness. So from the west they will fear the name of Adonai, and his glory from the rising of the sun. Now here again, we went through this when we went through Isaiah 59, but very quickly. It says, for he will come like a rushing stream, driven along by the Ruach ADONAI. And so there's a word in there, tsar, which is adversary, which we just saw a moment ago in verse 18, that, in wrath to his adversaries. And the word driven along could also be translated as a banner, as the word nes, a sign, like we saw yesterday. So this word, the last part of this verse where it says, "For he will come like a rushing stream, driven along by the Ruach ADONAI," could indeed say, "For in his coming," literally, it's "for in his coming like a river, an adversary, the Spirit of the Lord lifts a banner against him, or drives him away," can even be the idea when the enemy comes. And so he's coming to deal with the enemy. And verse 20 says, but a Redeemer will come to Zion, and to those in Jacob who turn from rebellion, from transgression, declares Adonai. And so between that passage in Isaiah 59 and the passage we're reading today, and soon after that, of course, the famous passage of Isaiah 61, the Redeemer, the Anointed One, has come, and he has spoken. He comes and he speaks. "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he's anointed me." The Ruach, Isaiah 61, 1 and 2, and he comes with this ministry of comfort and vengeance and salvation. "The Ruach of Adonai is upon me, of Adonai Elohim is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the afflicted. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those who are bound, to proclaim the year of Adonai's favor and the day of our God's vengeance." So the year of the Lord's favor, the day of vengeance. And we've talked about that before. "To comfort all who mourn," or it says the day of God's vengeance, "for the comforting of all the mourning ones." And so now here we're going to see a depiction of, in one sense, the aftermath of the day of our God's vengeance. Now, when we came to the end of Isaiah 63:1 opens up with, "Who is this? Who is this?" And it's so I was saying at the beginning that you see it from this perspective, and then you see it from this perspective. The relationship between this and Isaiah 52, right before Isaiah 53, is noteworthy to me. Isaiah 52, verse 7, "How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of him who brings good news, who announces shalom, who brings good news of happiness, who announces salvation, who says to Zion, your God reigns." The voice of your watchmen, they will lift up their voices. Together they are shouting for joy, for they will see eye to eye. They will see with their own eyes when Adonai returns to Zion. Verse 10, Adonai has bared his holy arm. Right? He has revealed, he's peeled back his holy arm before the eyes of all the nations. All the ends of the earth will see the Yeshua, the salvation of our God. And then, of course, Isaiah 53:1 opens up with, "Who has believed that which has been made heard?" That what our report. To whom? Upon whom is the arm of the Lord? Has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Right? So looking out for their king, they're watching the watchmen. They're looking for their king, and the Lord is baring his holy arm, and then they're surprised by what they actually see. Upon whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? And in the same way, here in Isaiah 63, their expectations are baffled by this image of this striking figure who sort of emerges. And he comes, it's like coming back from the battle, but he's coming alone. He emerges alone, and he's approaching from Edom, and he's dressed vividly, but the word vivid also has to do with in red. His robe, he's in crimson, and there's a swagger, there's a power and a strength in his walk as he walks in greatness and strength. We see Isaiah 63:1. Who is this? Mizeh, who is this? Coming from Edom, in crimsoned garments from Botzrah. This one splendid in his apparel, pressing forward, striding, marching in the greatness of his might, of his capacity. And so Edom and Botzrah are this picture. Edom is the nation, Basra or Botzrah is the capital. And so they're used here together in the sense as an embodiment of the ongoing animosity against the Lord and his people. When we went through Isaiah chapter 34, and you can always go back to that Daily Manna, we looked at this with a little more detail. But we saw in Isaiah 34, 5 and 6, says, "For my sword has drunk its fill in the heavens. See, it will come down upon Edom, upon the people I have devoted to judgment. The sword of Adonai is filled with blood, gorged with fat, the blood of lambs and goats, the fat of kidneys and rams. For Adonai has a sacrifice in Bozrah, a great slaughter in the land of Edom." And so here you have that picture, and again, it's a picture of those who have maintained enmity toward God's people. And so you have Edom, of course, the word Edom, Adom, it means red, and the words for Edom and reddened they match each other, and it's as if to say, like you see him coming, and he's in these garments of crimson, he's in these garments of red, and I mean, but this is not just any apparel. What he's wearing, his vestments are splendid. It's robed in splendor, like he has extraordinary clothing, but it's covered in red. And so he's striding forward, and there's no, and the word anyway, he's coming forward in strength. And who is this? And the thing is, we don't have to wait for an answer. We don't have to wait and be like, we don't have to wonder long who this is, because when the question is asked, he speaks up. Who is this? Coming from Edom in crimson garments from Bozrah, this one splendid in his apparel, pressing forward in his great might. The answer, he says, Ani, it is I who speaks in righteousness, mighty to save. He identifies himself. It's me. And what defining characteristics does he use to identify himself? It's me, the one who speaks in righteousness. But he speaks. He brings forth a word, right? And so first of all, he says, it's me, the one who speaks in righteousness, right? When the anointed one, the Mashiach, it was introduced we saw at the end of Isaiah 59:21, he's in Isaiah 59:21, he's endued, he's empowered with the Spirit and the Word. It says, as for me, this is my covenant with them, says Adonai, my Ruach who is on you, and my words that I have put in your mouth shall not depart from your mouth, or from the mouth of your offspring, or from the mouth of your children's offspring, says Adonai, from now on and forevermore. And so he speaks, but he speaks in righteousness. Here, the righteousness that was missing, right? There was no one doing justice. There was no righteousness. Everything was twisted up. But when he speaks, truth was missing. Remember? Truth was missing. So that one who shuns evil becomes prey. But this one, covered in the garments, his marvelous garments, but they're covered in red. He speaks, and he's like, it's me. I'm the one who speaks in righteousness. And not only do I speak in righteousness, but I am mighty to save. I'm the one who has the strength, who has the capability, who has the power, the might to save, to deliver. It's me. Right? So he can say with absolute assurance that all the Edoms of all time have been defeated. Not just because he speaks with righteousness, but because he's the one who can do it. And so this passage, when we read it, there's obviously imagery here of judgment that is in wrath, judgment and destruction. But the goal of this passage, especially when we finish through the whole passage, is about salvation, is about redemption. So the Lord who speaks the truth says the enemy is destroyed and his people are delivered. Right? So it's the same as in Isaiah 52, where what did the watchmen there see? They saw the mighty warrior. They saw the arm of the Lord coming with the word of salvation, right? But then they're going, wait, upon whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? So now there's a question as they see him coming, and he's in this marvelous clothing, and they say, Madua, why? What, like, I don't understand. Why is your apparel so red? He's coming from Edom, and his apparel is Adom, is red. Why is your apparel so red, and your garments like one who treads in a wine press? Right? What happened? Why are you? It's me. the one who speaks in righteousness, the one who is mighty to save. Well, why are your garments so red? Have you been walking around in a wine press? That's the only thing that could your clothes are stained. It's not the color of the clothes. Clearly, that's not the color that the clothes went out in. Those colors are stained. Have you been in a wine press stamping around on the harvested grapes to squeeze the juice out of them, and that's how you got the juice all over your clothes? And rather than the answer being, well, no, I haven't been in a wine press, he takes that motif, he takes that language, and uses that for this picture. Does it look like I've been in a wine press? Or sort of. He says, verse 3, he says, I have trodden, the word trodden, walked. The root word is the word derech, the way. I've walked the wine press alone. And from the peoples, you don't see the and here, but and from the peoples no man was with me. Yeah, I've been treading wine. And the he doesn't explain the imagery because the imagery is clear. And he says, I walked in the storage vat of the wine. I walked alone, right? I did this without assistance. And he says, and from the peoples, there was not one man with me. There was no one. And this is a central theme of this passage is him coming, being the only one, being his own arm, doing this alone. He saw there was no one, right? Therefore, his own arm brought salvation for him, Isaiah 59:16. We saw back in Isaiah 50, when the Lord says, why was there no answer when I came? Why was no one there when I came? Verse 2. Why was there no one to answer when I called? Is my hand too short to redeem, or have I no power to deliver? Well, surely the arm of the Lord is not too short. All right, so from the start of this, here he comes, and you see him coming alone. The solitary nature of him coming alone is emphatic throughout this passage, right? The whole work of judgment, the whole work of salvation is his alone, right? That he is indeed the judge as well as the Redeemer. I have trodden the winepress alone, and from the peoples no man was with me. He says, I trod them, I walked them in my anger, and trampled them in my wrath. Their lifeblood, and the language here for lifeblood is actually the word for juice, splattered my garments. So I stained all my robes. So, I walked and I trampled, and the only difference between them is that trampled is more vigorous, right? And so he says, it was because of his anger and his wrath. Here he speaks that now the Lord is slow to anger, but it doesn't mean he doesn't anger. The Lord is slow to heat up, but there is wrath. And so his clothing is spattered, is stained. And that language for stained, it has to do with it's been defiled, it's been polluted. Was it originally white? We don't, but it's been polluted, it's been defiled. The task he's been involved with was an exposure to defilement, which he accepted, right? He accepted that task, but it did not defile him because he returns speaking in righteousness. He has attacked the enemies of his people. He's trodden them underfoot like grapes so that their juice has spurted out, it's covered his garments. Why has he done this, right? He's done it because of his anger and because of his wrath. Now, we can look and say, hey, well, yeah, he's God as a father whose children have been abused and mutilated. He comes and says, enough. He's a king whose subjects have revolted, tried to usurp the throne. Enough. Right? He's the creator whose creations have been distorted and twisted. But enough. But here the Anointed One states his wrath, his anger, but he doesn't explain it. But the primary thought here is that he alone is the one who does the task. He says in verse 4, it says, for a day of vengeance was in my heart, and my year of redemption has come. right? So vengeance, the fact that there's vengeance, it's not from some sort of cruel spirit of revenge and bitterness, because there's a parallelism here. There's a day of vengeance and a year of redemption. It's very similar to what we saw, what the Anointed One says in Isaiah 61:2. He says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, and I'm here to proclaim good news to the afflicted, healing to the hurting, freedom for the captive, sight to the blind, to proclaim the year of Adonai's favor, and that the year of his favor, my year of redemption, has come, and the day of our God's vengeance, for a day of vengeance was in my heart. Right? So, and in my heart, it's in his plans and wishes. This is not the result of a sudden, uncontrollable outburst of fury. This has been coming. This has been coming. And but the vengeance is about redemption. It's a day of vengeance, a year of redemption. The goal in this, the heart of God in this, is ultimately redemption and salvation. Over and over, you see the heart of God throughout the scriptures. We looked in Ezekiel 33 the other day, talking about the watchman, and he says, "Why must you die, O Israel? It's not my desire that the wicked would be destroyed, but that they would turn and repent." That's what he wants. The Lord is slow to anger. Why is the Lord so slow in keeping his promises? Peter says, well, he's not slow as some of you would consider slow. He's patient with you. He's slow to anger with you, not wanting any to perish, but for all to come to redemption. But there comes the day where those that persist in oppression, those who persist in wickedness, those who persist in rebellion against God, and that rebellion against God, it results in a destruction, a destructiveness that is against the very nature of who he is, against his life and the beauty of who he is. It's against his heart. And so there comes the point where he says, enough. He's called the oppressor to stop oppressing over and over again. He's called the one doing wickedness and injustice to turn from that over and over again. But for how long will those who are being oppressed, with those who are being mistreated, how long will he stand by? How long, O Lord? In Revelation, there comes the point where those who have died for the sake of the name say, how long until vengeance comes? During the fifth seal, how long until vengeance comes? And he says, just a little while longer. Just a little while longer. He's giving more time for people to turn. But there comes the point where enough is enough. Where when your heart is so set in rebellion against the Lord, I've talked about it any number of times, that it's like when he came to Pharaoh and let my people go. But each time that he came, the consequences got worse, because Pharaoh's heart became harder and harder and harder. And rather than humbling himself, he just gets harder and harder, and he becomes more foolish, right? To the point where when the sea splits for the people to walk through, he doesn't recognize, he doesn't fall on his face and say, you are the God of the universe, right? He doesn't recognize in his heart. He doesn't do actually what Nebuchadnezzar did. When Nebuchadnezzar, after he was broken and wandered for 7 years as a crazy man, that he looked up finally and said, you are God alone. He recognized and he humbled himself. And in that moment, the Lord restored him. And so that possibility is there. You don't have to be a Pharaoh. You can be, even if you were an idiotic, out of your mind Nebuchadnezzar, you can be someone who, if you'll humble yourself and call upon him, he'll respond. He responded to Manasseh, as wicked of a king as Manasseh was. That when suffering came, when Manasseh was taken into captivity, and he humbled himself, called out to the Lord, and the Lord restored him. The consequences were still there. But the point is, the day of that, the vengeance of God is not an unrighteous vengeance. He's coming in righteousness. And there comes the point where if the vengeance isn't brought to those who are insistent They just refuse to humble themselves, to refuse to recognize, to walk in his ways, but are going to walk for themselves, are going to destroy all who come in their path. There comes the point where if that's not dealt with, where is the justice? And so there comes the point where when justice is brought, the victims of the injustice it speaks to their freedom. No longer will you have to worry about that injustice. There's two sides to the coin, but the Lord's heart is a year of redemption. There's a day of vengeance to bring about a year of redemption. Verse 5 will be very familiar. He says, I looked, the one speaking here, right? The one who's coming in robes of red, speaking here, says, I'm mighty to save. It's me, the one speaking in righteousness, mighty to save. I looked, but there was no one to help. There was no helper. There was no ezer, no helper. He says, I was amazed. The language is, I was horrified. But no one was assisting. So my own arm won victory for me. And again, the word victory is salvation here. My own arm brought salvation for me, and my wrath upheld me. Now, this is obviously a really close parallel to Isaiah 59:16, right? Isaiah 59:16, he saw that there was no one. He was astonished. He was horrified that no one was interceding. Therefore, his own arm brought salvation for him, and his righteousness upheld him. So in 59:16, it says he saw that there was no one. He was horrified. Here in 60 verse 3 or verse 5, it says, I looked. I was horrified. I saw that there was no one. I was horrified. In 59:16, it says his arm. Here it says my arm brought salvation. Right? So the anointed one who came to announce the day of the Lord, to do the Lord's work, now speaks with the Lord's voice. My own arm worked salvation for me, right? And his work is undergirded, is righteous. It's righteous alike in salvation and vengeance. And here at the moment of it having been executed, rather than it, the other difference here is in 59:16 it says his righteousness upheld him, but here it says my wrath upheld me, right? So the one who's coming there's a parallel between the righteousness of God and in this case, the wrath of God. And it goes to what I was just talking about, that if the final moment of judgment to those who stay in absolute, defiant, obstinate rebellion, then that there is, he says, the day is coming for he's going to bring the wrath and vengeance upon his enemies. God will achieve the redemption of his people. And we can either experience his arm as the righteousness of God on our behalf, or we can experience his arm as his wrath. The choice is ours. He says, so I trod down the peoples in my anger and made them drunk in my lifeblood, in my wrath, and I poured out their juice, their lifeblood on the earth. Right? So the servant, the Messiah, will one day tread the winepress of earth, and those who stay in obstinate rebellion, there's judgment. But that doesn't have to be the answer. Right? And in Revelation 14, verse 17, it says, then another angel came out of the temple in heaven and also had a sharp sickle. Then another angel, the one who has authority over fire, came out from the altar, and he called out with a loud voice to the one holding the sharp sickle, put in your sickle and gather the grape clusters from the vineyard of the earth, because her grapes are ripe. So the angel swung his sickle over the earth and gathered the clusters from the vineyard of the earth and threw them into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was stomped on outside the city, and the blood flowed from the winepress as high as a horse's bridle for 1,600 stadia. But we have to never forget, right, that before any of that, he is still the same one who poured out his soul into death for our sake. That that the death of those who maintain rebellion against God is the result of simply refusing to avail ourselves to his righteousness, that he laid down his life for our sake. He did that work in us. That you have the picture of here of, yes, I mean, there's a totality. There are those who, there early on, many of the early church fathers and kind of looked at this passage, and they had this imagery of that as he came, that his garments were the blood was from being on the cross, was his own blood from the winepress. And so then years later, John Calvin kind of reacted against allegorizing this passage, and then most commentators after have followed his interpretation. But it doesn't have to be one or the other. This can absolutely point to both and his work on the cross, because we see in the same moment, right? In the same moment that he's on the cross, we see his mercy and his love displayed. But we also see that the rebellion and the sin of man is such that it required this level of sacrifice. So we see that in the same moment that we see the mercies of God and the kindness of God toward us, we also see the wrath of God expressed towards sin and toward the destructiveness of sin. It's all in that same moment. It's just a powerful passage, and it will follow with, which we'll see, that with this praise for what the Lord has done. This is all about the chesed, the love of God, the praise of Adonai, all that he has accomplished for his people, because there is a day coming when the enemies of God who refuse, every knee will bow, every tongue will confess. But those who are insistent that their way of destruction and death for them is the right way will ultimately taste that. And the Lord's righteousness will prevail. All right, well, let me say good morning to anybody that I missed. Good morning to Charlene and in San Francisco. Wow, enjoy the beautiful weather out there for a wedding. And good morning again to Jerry and Janet and to Hattie. Good morning, Hattie. And let's see here. I think. And good morning to Jackie. Good morning, Jacqueline. So anyway, Isaiah 63 is powerful and just so much more in front of us. So we'll continue tomorrow. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, shalom. Have a beautiful day.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. You are speaking truth to power. You are laying down our swords, replanting every vineyard till a brand new wine is poured. Your peace will make us one. I've seen you in our own fires, burning with a quiet light. You are mothering and feeding in the wee hours of the night. Your gentle love is patient. You will never fade or tire. Your peace will make us one. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. dismantling our